So distillation. So the facility where the distillery is actually down further by Antigua in Guatemala. So we came out of the jungle and into Antigua. And we were not allowed to take any pictures with the distillery's logo. We were not allowed to share the name of the distillery because that's proprietary information, because a lot of people know that Doterra has a certain quality standard. And if they knew where we distilled our oils, they would want their oils to be distilled there too. So we were not allowed to share any of that information. The night before we headed down to the distillery, they actually we had our bags of cardamom that we took through the entire process, and they actually let us write notes. Each couple pair had their own bag of cardamom that we got to write on. We got to write a message on that was labeled Doterra and Choice, and those are those brown bags in the foreground of that first picture. And so those bags traveled down out of the hills in their own truck with us, and then were brought to the distillery. We got to see them poured, and the facility, Jean-Marie and Elisa are the name of the people, a husband and wife team that run the distillery. You can see down in the bottom left, they would take the cardamom and they would kind of grind it up really, really like a coarse, very, very coarse grind into that blue bucket. And then the blue bucket would be dumped into that big vat that was the still for making the oil. We got to dump the buckets in, and then they closed the still. And they have two stills, and one is just for cardamom, and the other one is for other products. They had an entire flatbed truck piled high with lemongrass that day. So lemongrass was going in. They said one is dedicated to cardamom. The other one, if they switch out different products, different plants that grow in that one, it takes a week and a half to clean that still, to prepare it for the next product. So the timing, this whole process is such an art form. It is an absolute art form, because the timing of everything is so specific. I don't even know how they track it all or how they manage it all. Elisa actually has like a really, really significant degree in the science and the aroma of different plants that she's kind of, I'm sure she had a gift prior to all of this, but her nose, her skill, her sense of smell has been curated so specifically that she can smell the oil to tell them when it's done, when it's ready. Because the oil, as it's distilled, still has a lot of water and condensation in it, and so they agitate the cardamom oil, and they said sometimes it'll take like up to 2 weeks, that they'll just agitate it to let some of the water evaporate. And we smelled the cardamom oil that came out immediately with the condensation and the water in it, and then we smelled obviously the final product, and there was a significant difference. But what they do, because her sense of smell is so acute and sharp, is if she smells it and she says, nope, needs to keep going, or yep, that's it, nope, it's not ready, yes, it's not, or no, it's not. And if she's traveling and she's away, they actually mail her samples of the oil, and she makes the final say of whether or not an oil is ready to be sent for packaging. But it was fascinating. Her skill was, and it was an art form. And then they took us out back to where Jean-Marie has built what they call a biodigester, and they take the byproducts of the things that the plants that they distill, and then they also use manure from local farms, and they put it into this biodigester, and they create methane gas that then fuels and powers the distillery. And he invented this entire process. It is one of the most sustainable, genius processes ever. So they said that cardamom is actually, a lot of other plants take longer to produce the oil from the time that they close the still. It took us about 10 minutes. And so we went up to see the biodigester. We came back. And that oil that you see was coming out. So our cardamom that we tracked from the beginning to the end was coming out of this. It was pretty amazing. And they said that cardamom is actually a very high yield plant. 885 milliliter bottles per 100 pound bag, which I was like, wait a minute, like you couldn't even fit 880 bottles in that bag. And part of me wonders if that number was lost in translation. I don't know, because that seems like a lot, but that was the number that we got. So upcoming projects, there are some things that we're working on that doTERRA Healing Hands and Choice are working on. You may have heard that the volcano erupted there in May or June this year, and they talked about that a lot at convention also. And we saw it. We saw what Emily Wright said. So while we were driving up to the distillery, there's 3 volcanoes right by Antigua, and the one that erupted is still, I guess this is a normal thing, but it's still plumes of smoke are still coming out. So I guess that's normal, but you can see some of the path of destruction. You can see on the volcano back behind in this picture on the left, some of it is still green, but you can see the gray and the brown where the lava flow happened and came down, and then you can see what lava flow creates. It just creates black and a charred landscape. And it was amazing because one house would be there and the next house wouldn't. And there were some houses that looked very similar to the one in the middle picture there, but there was a clothesline with clothes on it outside. And I don't know if that was evacuated and just left and it's been that way since, or if there are people still living that way in that home. It's kind of like, I don't know, for people who are local, if they went and saw the destruction of Oso, right? The landslide up north in Oso. It's north of Snohomish where I live. Like they showed it on TV and it just you didn't grasp it until you saw it in person. So because these people are still living without, because these people in this area are still living without water, Healing Hands and doTERRA Healing Hands and Choice are working on bringing clean water to these people, and that project is in the process. And Jean-Marie is using some of his genius to help with water filtering systems for the entire community. Also, Sunkok, which is where the school is now, and it's getting an entirely new school. While we were there, they said this is just coincidence. We didn't plan this or anything, but while we were there, they announced that Healing Hands and Choice have just approved funds for a new school to be built right in that same place where we were. These people are going to have a new school. So it's my mission to get back there and be a part of a small part of building that school when it happens. You just feel connected to the people. So we're really excited about that. So how can anyone else get involved? Obviously, the way that any of us on a small scale can contribute, and I posted this in my Facebook group not too long ago, but like doTERRA processes 9 million orders every year. Imagine if we all just added $1. So add $1 or more to your doTERRA order. Like what is $1 to us and what is $1 to them? doTERRA can magnify our efforts because of their relationships with Choice Humanitarian, because of their outreach, because of the work that has been done. So obviously when you purchase rose lotion or your hope oil or different things like that, that is the way that we can make a difference in people's lives and that we can create a bigger outreach for what doTERRA is trying to do. Please, like that is my main thing. Like let's just put $1. Make sure that Healing Hands box is checked no matter what on your orders, because we can make a really big impact in these people's lives. The main thing that I want to convey is that this trip was just cardamom, right? This is just one of our oils. Obviously, when we left, we all got our own little bottle of cardamom here. But every oil that we use, every oil that we buy has this story, right? It has its own story. It has its own community behind it. It has its own farmers. It has its own buyers. It has its own Choice Humanitarian or other NGOs on the ground doing the work to create a culture of integrity within these communities. Every single oil has that story. And so it makes me mindful of every drop that I use, because every time I smell cardamom, it takes me immediately back to a cardamom beadlet, right? Fresh off the plant. It takes me back to that drying facility and being in there shoveling the cardamom. I mean, I feel like all I smelled was cardamom for 4 or 5 days straight. But not only does that speak to the power of our olfactory system, so never underestimate the power of these oils and what we can do with them by sharing them, by gifting them, by getting them into the hands of other people, by buying them. Just by buying them, we're making a difference. And by teaching people how to use them, we can bring them back to beautiful experiences in their lives, or we can bring them back to places of comfort and peace and empowerment. The same way that it works for me when I use this. It takes me back to that beautiful place and those beautiful people. And so I would encourage everyone who watches this, everyone who has an opportunity, create that same experience for you. Find an oil, find one that you love, and every day ground yourself and anchor yourself to that oil in a peaceful, safe, comfortable place. And then teach other people how to do it too. Because the more people that we can teach, I honestly believe that the world will be better. The world will be improved. And then when people are well, when people are feeling happier and healthier, then they are able to reach out and do more. When we can all work and act and serve from that place, we will help accomplish the mission that Doterra has created.
Right.
And that is my goal now. It is my goal to never stop talking and never stop sharing, because I feel like I have an obligation now. I have an obligation. That's all I have. Thank you guys for spending an hour with me and for listening. And if anyone has any questions, obviously reach out to me in the group or via private message or text or however you want to reach out. But thank you for listening. Thank you for honoring this experience that I had and learning more about it.